So in today's episode we got the side-by-side from CFMOTO. I don't know what to make of it because here it says CF500 UTRA, there it says 550, on the back it says EX Z-Force, so I don't know which model it is. I guess it's a CF500 UTR. The customer is concerned about knocking noise while it's idling, so we're gonna check that, and after we fix this issue we're gonna make a small service and check that everything is nice and tight as it's supposed to be. So as usual, there's lots of disgusting stuff inside all those hidden compartments. Like down there, it's impossible to wash it, even if you take care of your UTV, ATV, or whatever you want to call it. There are some places that you're not going to clean this properly. So all this is going to be always dirty, but now I'm going to try to start it and see if we can hear some knocking from the either variator or the clutch, because I think the noise is coming from one of these two. Yep, that sounds like a variator for me. Let's continue. Because the screws that holding the variator cover are in a very tight spot, we're going to use my favorite tool, angle ratchet, powered by compressed air. Noisy as hell, but it makes the work quicker. So, here is your noise, Sal. Now you may think that the winch on your ATV or your side-by-side is there to winch you out. No, it's for your mechanic to winch you in. Now when it comes to the variator sitting on a crankshaft, first of all, most of those bolts that hold the variator in its place are left threaded, which means righty-tighty, lefty-loosey doesn't apply here. It's actually the other way around. As you can see, I'm removing the bolt by going clockwise, which is not as it's supposed to be. But sometimes you're going to find yourself in a situation like this, that when you remove this bolt, this variator, this entire assembly is not coming off the crankshaft because they sit very, very hard there. And what you're supposed to do then, you're supposed to use a special tool. That's the most important thing. Special tool, it looks something like this. On different brands, there are different special tools, but most of the idea is the same. But because you are not the workshop, for example, and you just want to work on your own ATV, I'm going to show you a trick how to remove this without damaging anything. And it's something you can do yourself. Check this one out. So now your variator bolt is removed and the variator is still not coming off, and it sits there very hard and there's no chance you're going to get this off. So what you do, you actually notice that when I removed that bolt, there was two moments that I had to spin it. One was all the way in when it's hold the variator in its place, and the other one was somewhere about halfway out. There is one more thread inside this variator, and this thread is there just to remove the variator with a special tool. So what you do, you take this bolt out, you put a nice flat long screwdriver in, all the way in, and then you mark the place with your marker. You mark on a screwdriver how deep it went. It doesn't want to go any more in, just make sure it's all the way in, and then you make a mark just on the end of your variator. Now what you do next is you take your bolt that has a thread on it, you put the bolt in, and you spin this bolt about 10 times. You made about 10 full rounds of the bolt, all the way 1, 2, 3, 4. in the direction of screwing the in, which in this case is a left thread, so we're going to go left. So this is one, I'm going to make 20 of those. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20. And now we are sure that the amount of thread that is got threaded in, it's more or less okay and is enough and is not going to damage the thread when we get to the second part. And what you do now, you make the same mark on your screw in the same place as on a screwdriver. Now you align your marks together, both on the screwdriver and on your bolt. And this distance from here to here, you have to find some kind of screw thinner than the bolt itself, but thicker than the screwdriver, so it's strong enough. And you just cut the piece of metal. In that case, I use a piece of a threaded shaft. You can use an old broken screwdriver and just cut it into the right length. So basically you make yourself a tool like this. And what you do now is you take your freshly made special tool, slide it in, and then you take the original screw that is holding the variator and you screw it until it stops. Now when it stops now, which means that it's touching this little piece of metal that we just slid it in, and this little piece of metal is touching the crankshaft and it stops. So what's going to happen now when you turn this more in, you're going to pull the variator with the original bolt just the same way as this special tool will do. So you take a key, I can show you with my hand because the variator has been removed, so it's easy, but you take the key, you put the key on it and you just turn it, and the variator is being, as you can see, pushed out from the crankshaft. You're probably going to have to apply lots of force on that screw, and in one moment this is just going to jump off with lots of noise, so don't get scared. Do not put your hands in front of it because it might jump all the way out like this and hurt you. But this is what you do. And then you just remove this little piece of bolt and you keep it for later, for next time you have to remove the variator yourself. Now, new slides came without the weights, so all you have to do is punch out the weights. They look like this, they're heavy. You have to punch them out through the hole from the old one, and then we can put them into the new one. We're also going to apply a little bit of glue just to make sure that they don't fly out. So basically what you do is just punch them out. You can try to push them, but they're usually sitting quite hard, so gentle tap and they're out. Clean them and put them back into the new slides. Now there is a small part of Bermuda triangle that isn't actually in Bermuda. It's right here in my workshop because one of these weights dropped down and I just spent 15 minutes looking for it. Everybody who ever dropped something, you know how easily things like this can disappear. It just rolled across the workshop very nicely and it was hidden under the tire changing machine. So yeah, small part of Bermuda Triangle, it's right here in Norway. Now old bearings are out. Before we put the new one in, make sure that this place here is not corroded and is nice and clean. You clean this one up before you put the new bearings in. It needs to be clean and not corroded so the new bearings can sit straight and all the way down when where they're supposed to go. Now there are different types of methods to put the new bearings in. Obviously they're not going by themselves. You can cold press this on the press. You can heat this one up and then put the bearing down, but because of the bearings, because those bearings have they sealed with the plastic seal, I really don't, and they're really small. I really don't want to heat this one up because after you put the bearing in, the heat gonna transfer from that into the bearing and into those seals, and they might get damaged. They don't sit very hard. They're quite easy to put in. Please do not attempt to punch those, or even worse, to punch them through the old bearing, because you think if you punch the old bearing, nothing gonna happen to the new one. All those forces transfer from one metal to another, and then you damage your bearing. In the case of that one, I'm gonna be using a tool like this. Is a tool for the, actually this tool is for bicycles. It's a tool to put the steering bearings into the frame of bicycles, but it works perfectly on those. But as you can see, I cannot use any of those because they don't match the outside of the bearing. This disc have to match the outside of the bearing before you can squeeze it. Please do not squeeze the inner line of the bearing because you're going to damage the bearing. None of them fits properly. I have lots of those, so I'm going to find the right dimension so they can sit outside, not inside, and then we're just going to squeeze them together with that bolt. So here is a nice set of different size of bearing drivers. It's okay if it's too big, it's not okay if it's too small. So for example, 48 is a little bit too big than our bearing, but this is okay. You can still use 48, and then we're going to use 40. This is 47. This is a perfect size of the bearing, so we can use 47 and 48, but we're going to use 48 and then 49, so we can squeeze it, so we can squeeze them nice and straight. We're gonna have to move this nut to the middle so it actually threads in properly, and then we just make sure that they align with the bearings nice and straight, and we squeeze them. These are very small, very gentle bearings, so they don't sit very hard. There is not much force you have to use to push them in. I actually use this key and I was holding this in my hand. Sometimes you have to hold this tool in a screw holder and then use a little bit more force, or sometimes you even have to go with two keys on both sides and squeeze them equally. But they're very gentle, small bearings. They went in very easily, but you cannot hit them. You cannot use this driver and simply smash it on the top with a hammer, because they will go in, but they're so small and so gentle, you're actually going to end up damaging them, and you're going to have to replace them in a week time or so. Now this is Variator. It's disgusting, we have to clean it. There are actually two Teflon bearings. They're dry bearings. We have to clean them before we can use them. They have to be nice, dry and clean, not as now. Then we're going to have to polish and clean this area of the shaft, and that one. Obviously we're going to clean this one too, and then we're going to clean the spring. So we're going to assemble all the Variator, but first we have to clean this very nicely. Now these are the main two parts of the Variator. The Variator sits on usually it sits on the crankshaft. Now this device is very simple. It's in most of the ATVs, it's in most of the scooters, in some motorcycles, even in some cars. So this is a very simple device. I'm going to show you later how it works when I'm going to be assembling it. Now I've seen some people polishing this surface and that surface. This surface not supposed to be polished. This is made of aluminium. That's the surface that is grabbing and pulling your belt. So this cannot be polished, because then it will have no friction good enough to pull your belt properly. The only thing this needs to be is nice, clean, flat, without any roots or damages. In that case, there are some small damages on the edge right here. I think maybe it was a stone or something else that got into the Variator housing and made those damage, because there's a few small ones around this surface. This is not the big deal. The big deal if there is like a very deep root all the way around and you can feel it with your finger, then you have to replace that, because your belt will jump into that root and get damaged and make the root even deeper, and then the Variator will not work properly, and you're going to feel jerky motions while you drive your ATV or side by side. Now when it comes to small damages like this, small pricks of aluminium made by, I guess, stone or maybe a piece of a metal or something, you can gently grind them down with the gentle sandpaper so they don't damage the belt, because when the variator grows, the belt goes all the way up to here, and if this is not nice and smooth, it can actually damage the belt. This is not the end of the world. We can use a little bit of sandpaper, or even better, sanding cloth like this, and just make sure they're nice and clean. Do not go too deep, because then you're going to damage it by trying to fix it. But just make sure all those surfaces are nice and flat, and most importantly, when you move your finger from the top down, you don't feel any deep places or any roots, any holes. Do not polish this, and do not go too hard with the sandpaper, because this is just supposed to be nice and clean, and just make sure there is no edges that can catch and cut your belt. So very quickly, how this works. Basically, the weights, in this case they are this shape with this kind of weights inside. Sometimes in the scooters or in snowmobiles there are rollers, different types, different weights, different sizes, different amounts. Sometimes it's 4, 5, 6, 12, doesn't matter, it all works the same. Sometimes instead of weights and rollers you have small arms with the springs, and you adjust the tension of the spring. In that case you can adjust the weight of the slide. In this case you can adjust the weight of the roller. They're lighter and they're heavier. And basically how this works is, when this spins on the crankshaft, there are centrifugal forces working on those weights, and they want to push them out this way. So because of the design of and the shape of this aluminium, when they are pushed out, they grow in height. And when they grow in height, they press on this disc, and this disc is connected to the crankshaft, and this disc doesn't move. So what's happening when all this thing spins? Because of the weights are pushing this one away, this side of the disc wants to lock the gap between them. And by locking this gap, those two plates starting to squeeze on the belt. And as you can see, the more they lock, the higher the belt needs to go. And basically what's happening, the gearing changes, because the size of the friction plate that is actually dragging the belt getting from small to the bigger one. So you changing the gearing. Now, by adjusting the weight, what do? You basically delay the moment when centrifugal force is strong enough to push them hard enough to lock the gap and start to squeeze on the belt. So basically when you put the heavier weights, the more RPM you need on the whole device to push it to the certain distance. I'm going to show you a small example on myself how this works. So basically what happens is centrifugal force. I hope I'm saying this right. I'm sorry, it's my accent. But basically when I spin my body around, my hands wants to go outwards because of that force. I'm working here. Hello? So what is happening when I spin, my hands wants to go out. And in order for them to go 90 degrees like that, I have to spin with certain amount of speed, with certain RPM. Let's say that was 100 RPM, 100 revolution per minute, to get my hands like that. And my hands are empty and light, but if I weigh them down with 5 kilo, in order to get them to the same angle, which is 90 degrees, I must spin much faster to get them there. Which means the heavier weight, the more RPM you need to apply to get the same angle of the push. And in that case of the Variator, the push that goes on the belt. So that's how the Variator works. It's a very simple device, but very smart at the same moment. So let me assemble that one so we can put it back in the bike. Now before you put your variator, make sure that this part inside here, it's nice and clean, and the crankshaft on the engine is nice and clean, because there cannot be any grease and stuff. This is nice dry connection. You put this on and then you tighten your bolt to the correct force, and I'm gonna apply some blue Loctite here just to be sure it's not moving out. Now to put the belt back on, we have to open up this part, which is I call this clutch, but it's not exactly clutch. It's the clutch is 100% clutch is in the scooters, and this is sort of a secondary variomatic system that follows the first one, but it has a belt on it, and it also works more or less on the same idea as the Variator. But to open this, there is a hole in it, or even two. All of them have that hole, and you have to find the correct bolt and put the bolt in and screw it all the way inside. So we open the gap between those two discs, we squeeze the spring which is on the other side, and then we can put the belt on, because right now there is no chance to put the belt on this. Sometimes on a Can-Am, for example, it's M8. This screw is just a simple screw. The important part is that the thread on the screw is all the way to the head, not just the halfway or 20%. And you just screw this one all the way in until these two open up wide enough so you can mount your belt on. So the Variator and the belt is on, bolts are in, tied to the correct amount, and now we can put the cover back on and continue with the small service. Now it's quite tricky with this gasket because it's a small space and you can't see very well. After you mount it, go with the flashlight around the cover, make sure the gasket is not pinched in any place, didn't went in or out. After you bolt it on, just go around and check the gasket if it's sitting properly. So now we're going to mount the new air filter, but before we do that, we're actually going to clean the air filter box. I know it's going to get dirty quite quick, but yeah, we're going to clean it anyway. Then we're going to apply a little bit of lubricant here so it slides into the hose easier. And there you go. Now be honest, which one of you ever checked that? And which one of you doesn't even know what this is for? There's more than one on this bike. There's at least one on your motorcycle, and on ATVs and side by side there's more than one. There's sometimes two or even four. There's one more here, and there is one more down there under the cover for the Variator. Now this is a cover, transparent cover for the drain sort of pipe, drain pipe, that goes from the airbox and different places where the water and oil not supposed to be, but sometimes can be. Now when you take this down, sometimes it's leaking water, especially after you did some water crossing, or sometimes it leaks oil that was spit out through the filter or the breather. You take this one out, you clean it. As you can see, it's full of dust here. You clean this and you make this transparent, and when you see on your right a water or oil inside, is a small amount is okay, especially after, like I said, after water crossing. But when you open this and it's leaking oil or it's leaking water, then it means that there's some trouble, and you have to open this box that this one drains and check if everything is fine. If it's full of water, it's probably leaking water. Probably water is leaking somewhere inside. If it's full of oil, probably there's too much oil in the engine and it spits out through the air filter or through the breathing hose, which is right over here. That's the breathing hose from the crankcase. And every single filter has this hose on most motorcycles and ATVs. You have a hose connected back to the airbox from the engine block. Engine use that hose to breathe and spit out excess amount of oil if you fill up too much. So clean them, put them back on where they're supposed to be, And don't forget to check them once in a while. Now the second thing that many people don't do on their ATVs or other machines is lubricate those little nipples. On every connection that moves constantly while you ride, especially on a suspension between, for example, suspension and a frame, stabilization shaft, every connection that moves constantly when the bike or ATV is driving needs to be lubricated, especially if there is no bearing, if there is a rubber metal or metal or plastic connection. There are those little nipples. There's lots of them all over the bike there. There's like 6 just on this side, 6 over there, and probably 12 or at least 10 in the front. You have to lubricate them with a special gun. It looks something like this. Sometimes they're manual, sometimes they're electric. And basically you connect this nozzle into this little nipple, like that. And you squeeze the grease inside until it comes out here. You wipe up whatever comes out, and then you are sure that there is new fresh grease inside to lubricate your connection. Now, to drain the oil on this bad boy, you have to open this one, drain it. And it looks like an oil filter cap, but this is not actually an oil filter. The oil filter is actually here on the side of the engine. 3 bolts, and there's a cover. That's where the oil filter is not down there, on there. Now don't be lazy and don't open just the oil drain and drain your oil. You actually wait for the oil to stop leaking, take those 3 bolts out, very easy, and then you remove this entire thing like that, because what's inside is actually an oil screen. And this screen, as I'm going to show you in a moment, is always full of metal chunks. So don't be lazy and drain only your oil. Remove this and check it and clean it properly. It takes 10 minutes more and it can save you lots of work and lots of money in the future. Like I said, don't be lazy. Open this, it's just 3 screws. Then you remove it. And look, there's a screen. And there is a screen, metal like a screen, that's gonna catch all the metal particles that fly. And there is actually some of them are here. They're not necessarily metal, it can be pieces of silicone, gaskets, plastic, whatever it is. It's gonna get stuck down here. You can open this entire thing and clean it. Look at it. Look what it actually here. A piece of metal wire and some other plastic or metal pieces. So don't be lazy and just open the drain plug. Open the whole thing, check it. Be careful with this gasket. You probably don't have a new one because you didn't order it. Look what's here. That's actually a broken thread somewhere from the engine. So open that. Do not just drain the oil. Open it, clean it, and check if it's okay. So the screen is nice and clean. I'm gonna pop this back on where it belongs, which is right here, just like that. New washer on the drain plug goes in, and we're gonna put this on, and we're gonna tighten this one after we put those 3 bolts back in and we mount the entire assembly into the engine. Don't be lazy! Now the old filter is out. Nothing very big and worrying in it, it's just old. We're gonna put the new one in. And remember, when you're draining the oil, do not remove the oil pan because you have to open that, and there's lots of oil inside the filter itself, so it's going to be leaking. So keep your oil pan under the oil for the entire process. Now those bikes, they have a sort of extension on the oil stick. You can actually use very short stick, but to make it easier, they put this plastic extension, and what you notice that sometimes when you open your stick, the whole extension will come out. You actually can clean this thread, and there's a place here for the key. I believe is 19. Yes. What you can do, you can tie this pretty hard, don't break it, and then it's going to be easier to remove just the top part in order to remove the stick. It's just the extension to make it easier to check the oil level. So, but sometimes they come out, so just tie them up, clean the thread, clean the gasket. Do not apply any kind of Loctite or glue or silicone or Teflon tape on that thread. It's not necessary, just tie this properly into the engine block and then you can use it as it was designed. So because the access to the oil filling place is tricky, we're going to have to use the funnel, and because it's a very small hole, it's going to take a long time. So I'm going to speed this up for you so you don't have to suffer like me. Because we're going to do a big service and we're going to adjust the valves, which are actually here on the back under this cover. There's the cylinder head. We're going to check and adjust the valves. We're going to change the spark plug. We're going to check all the connections. We're going to change the coolant, and the bleeding screw for the cooling system is right here. But because we're going to open the actual engine, I want to make it nice and clean before I open anything, so we don't have any dirt or stones or sticks falling into the engine. Also, I noticed that we're going to wash this area as well, and I noticed that the screw for cam chain tensioner is missing, and it's blowing air through that one, and I can actually hear it when the engine is working. And there's some small other issues that needs to be tied up and adjust. But first we're going to wash it, and we're also going to give it a nice wash to all those dirty, disgusting plastics. Starting problem solved. So the valve being too tight was the issue of bike starting poorly. Now, because vehicles like this are used in the winter, it's nice to check the coolant. What I mean is to check the level, of course, but also check the freezing point of your coolant. So all you have to do on that, you have to pop the hood. There you go. And I hope I can show you this. Now, when it's hot, do not open this, of course. When it's cold, you can just open it. This one is nice because it's on a chain. You won't believe how many times I lost this cap down there because it didn't have a chain. Like this is enough. And now all you have to do is put that on the screen here. Lock it, make sure it's nice and flat. And you look under the light to see what's the freezing point. This is what I see inside this device. So this one is about minus 32, 33, something like that. Oh, there you go. Minus 33. Good enough. So the service is done. The parts that's supposed to be replaced are replaced. There is no knocking sound anymore. All I have to do now is clean this little pre-filter. It's a small filter that sits on the top of the air intake pipe snorkel. This one is just to stop flies and leaves and all the big things that can fly around before they go into the snorkel. So we're gonna dust this one off, we're gonna put this back on, and then we're gonna assemble all the plastics back as they're supposed to be. We have a new oil, new spark plug, adjusted valves, new Variator rollers and Variator bearings. And yeah, then we're gonna take it for a small ride, see if everything is nice and tight. I lubricated the entire suspension on the front and back. The one last thing I have to do is repair the sensor in the driver's seat, because this one have a sensor for the handbrake and the seat. So when you get off the seat and the handbrake is not applied, it's going to make a sound to let you know that you have to put the handbrake so it doesn't roll back or forward or it doesn't run away from you, which happens. Don't ask me how I know. So that's it, CFMOTO 500 or 550, depends which sign you want to read from it. Is it good off-road? No. Is it good on-road? No. Is it good? No. Basically it's a little machine with four-wheel drive. The build quality is okay, performance, I don't want to even say it. If you want to have fun with it, there are machines much more capable, much more powerful, that's going to give you much more fun. If you have a small farm or a garden and you need the machine to work with a four-wheel drive, this will be good enough. It's a good working machine, a good tool, nothing more than that. Is it very good looking? Well, I wouldn't say that. It looks like a golf cart with off-road wheels. To be honest, it's nothing special. Everything about it is average. The performance, the power, the suspension, the material used, the quality of it, everything is average. So if you want to have an average machine for average use, it's going to be okay, I guess. The noise from it when you're driving is insane. It's really loud. Everything, the wheels, you can hear the wheels, you can hear the half shaft, you can hear the engine and the gearbox, and it's the rattling from all the thing around it. It's just amazing how loud it is. You're not going to drive this for pleasure or for fun. Most of the cases you're going to be riding this for work. I'll try to make more videos with the contraption like this, like ATVs and side-by-side and jet skis and snowmobiles. As always, thank you for watching and see you in the next one.